Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our website. Please stand to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Prupus?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Santana?
Here.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Here.
Thank you.
Before I begin, I just want to talk real quick about a tragic incident that took place a little over 2 weeks ago. There was a devastating fire in town over by the middle school. And thanks to Officer Sweeney that went into the building to pull the woman out. She has since passed away, but she was able to say goodbye to her friends and family for that week before she did pass away. So we are going to recognize Officer Sweeney and members of the police and fire. And we're very thankful to the fire department that they were able to, protect the area around the home, because it could have been a lot worse with all the dry weather that we've had. So we will be recognizing them next month, but I just wanted to ask everyone to keep Ellie's family in your prayers. And she was a longtime volunteer in the community for 35 years on the Senior Citizen Advisory Board. So she was a great lady. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the October 15th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the October 15th, 2024 special Township Committee minutes?
So.
May I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's it. All right, reports. Deputy Mayor, would you like to go first? I can
Sure.
start at the other end. You want to go first?
Start at the other end.
Okay. Who would have installer?
Sure. It's been a busy couple of weeks. All right, SID Special Improvement District, Main Street, first meeting since the Main Street designation was announced, and we're proud to say Milburn was accepted as one of the 2024 designees by the Main Street New Jersey program. There's a Kids Glow Crazy Holiday Dance Party on November 15th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Short Hills Train Station, hosted by 9-year-old DJ LeBrock to spin the holiday tunes. Holiday Kickoff Extravaganza, November 23rd from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. in downtown Milburn. There's gonna be characters including Olaf and the Grinch, free holiday parking, the parking elves, and Santa photos. Winter Village, Saturday, December 7th and Saturday, December 14th, two nights, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Town Hall Plaza. BOE Liaison. We'd like to congratulate Ms. Diskin, who was appointed our new superintendent of schools. She was the acting superintendent, but she was actually appointed the superintendent. She was voted in and awarded a contract actually last night. I'd like to congratulate the 3 BOE board members, Brian Lawrence, Noel Bigman, and Asaf Farashudin for taking on the 3 open Milburn BOE seats. And contract negotiations are still ongoing with the teachers. Joint fields. Which is the interaction between the BOE and the rec on the fields. Myself, Chris Myers, and Alex McDonald met with representatives from the school and their consultant who performed the feasibility analysis for ways to activate additional field space and usage behind the high school. It went very well. Obviously, there's a lot of runway ahead of us. Right now, they're doing a study on the lighting that would be needed for those fields. Emergency dispatch, which is the Mountain Valley Emergency Communication Center, MVECC. We're going to meet for the fourth quarter regular meeting on November 13th at 2 p.m. And we're just going to discuss several personnel issues, the 2025 budget, et cetera, et cetera. Flood mitigation. We had a successful public session for the entire town. I believe the replay is now up on the township website, correct, Alex?
I don't know.
Are we gonna make it?
I don't think we did.
Oh, was that video? Okay, so if you weren't there, you missed a great session. Big kudos to the Flood Mitigation Committee. Affordable housing, I'm gonna defer to our council. And I think that's pretty much everything. I don't think I'm missing.
Just picking up on the flood mitigation, tomorrow, I'll be meeting with Nick Bolpicelli from the committee and Theodore Whitman from the Arboretum to take a walk through what they're planning for fixing the flooding that occurs at the Van Winkle Creek. I guess I don't know, but it's not a river. I'm not sure what it is, but whatever it is. We talked about it. There was no, it wasn't taped because we broke up into small groups, so that's why there's no video of it. But at any event, they did an outstanding presentation, but there's nothing like actually seeing it in person. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. On planning, we had our second meeting with the Chai Center. Again, it was all about the civil engineer. It made some changes to the first set of plans. So we kind of started again with the civil engineer, and that took the entire time of the meeting. We're meeting again tomorrow night, where the first topic is traffic, and then still to come is the architect and the operations. There is a 45-day deadline where this is supposed to be wrapped by December 2nd. I don't really think that that's possible. So, you know, both sides have to agree to an extension. I certainly think that that is something that will happen. But in any event, the public is certainly invited to the meeting. At the end of each of those experts of testimony, there's an opportunity for the public to ask questions. So if you want to know more about the traffic or the operations or the architecture, you know, that's your opportunity to ask those questions. The Arboretum held a very successful holiday event for Halloween. There were about 45 kids. We had a walkthrough of the Arboretum. It was free. It was an opportunity for the children, but also for their families to get to know the Arboretum better. There was people were in costume, and there was lots of candy giveaways. It was a pretty successful event. The library, not to steal anyone's thunder, but the Friends of the Library are soon to kick off their membership. I don't know if you were going to say that during public comment, Dorothy, but anyway, the annual membership drive is should be starting shortly, and I would encourage all of you to if you're not already, to become a friend of the library. Otherwise, at the library, work continues on, we've received bids on replacing the elevator, which is on its last legs, and you know, would be it's something that needs to be repaired. And lastly, just to let everybody know, there was although the library is fine-free, that does not alleviate people's responsibility to return their materials when they borrowed them. There was an outstanding case of someone who had borrowed a tremendous amount of materials and was not returning them after numerous notices and communications and whatnot. So the library was about to take it to court. So, I mean, we are serious. And actually some of the materials were borrowed from other libraries through the interlibrary system. So Milburn would have been on the hook for that as well. Fortunately, the borrower decided to return everything or pay for what was unable to be returned the night before the case would have gone to court. So fortunately that had a good ending, but it was a lot of work. So we certainly would like everybody to know that the library takes that all very seriously. Thank you.
And just so you mentioned planning board, just so everyone knows, the township committee will not be discussing anything that has to do with the planning board, that they're their own autonomous board. So if anybody's here for that, like Committeeman Cohen said, they have their special meeting tomorrow night. Deputy Mayor?
Sure. So for the Environmental Commission, everyone's very happy that the Open Space Trust Fund ballot measure passed. They're eagerly looking forward to moving on to the next step. So perhaps we could put a item for discussion on next meeting's agenda to figure out what the roadmap is to getting to the necessary ordinances we need to formulate the committee that'll advise, you know, what that money can get used for in the future. We're also going to be discussing a potential leaf blower ordinance tonight. And I just wanted to also mention, we just got our updated crime statistics here, and our police have been doing a fantastic job this year at reducing crime. The numbers I'm looking at here show that we've got a 59% decrease in the number of car thefts, a 57% decrease, I'm sorry, that's recoveries, fewer car thefts, so fewer recoveries, a 31% decrease in the number of car burglaries, 27% decrease in the number of home burglaries. So these numbers are going in the right direction, and our police have been working diligently to keep us all safe and keep our community safe, and I commend them for all the hard work they've done this year.
Thank you. Committeewoman Krupas, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no report.
Getting back to the crime statistic, we want to thank you for locking your vehicles in your homes. I just wanted to add, the free parking for holiday shoppers begins November 22nd. You still have to abide by the time permits in that spot, in those parking spots, so you can't stay there all day. And also, mentioning Board of Ed candidates, I wanted to congratulate David Cosgrove on being elected for the Township Committee. Congratulations, David. We look forward to working with you. And I also want to thank Alex Saltzman for running. It's not an easy thing to do. So I do appreciate him putting his hat in the ring. I did see him shortly after the election, ironically at DPW, both of us getting rid of our lawn signs. So I encouraged him to stay involved. So, okay. Mr. McDonald, would you like to?
I don't have it.
Mr. King.
The only report I have is there are currently 3 pending motions before the court in our fair share housing action. All 3 are scheduled to be heard next Friday at 2 p.m. It's currently scheduled for a virtual hearing. I don't know how the public gets access to it, but I know in the past the residents have attended virtually. So if I get any more information on how the public could view it, if they'd like to, I'll pass that along to Alex or Matt or our clerk, and they could pass it along.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 2024 Best Practices Inventory Resolution 24-245. Mr. McDonald.
I'm pleased to report that the township has scored a 45.5 out of 46.5 on its best practices inventory this year. That the best practices inventory includes a long list of best practices, but also a long list of unscored survey questions that the state asks of the municipality. A couple of things that I would just like to note, particularly for the committee after in reviewing this best practices. There was a question under 7A that was a clerical error. We were able to get that changed. It's an unscored survey question that we had previously answered no to. That was changed to yes. This is has your municipality reached an affordable housing settlement agreement for the 3rd round with Fair Share Housing Center, a builder, or any other interested party? Again, clerical error had it at no, but we had changed that to yes. We also, there were a few questions brought up by Committeeman Cohen, so I appreciate your review of this, and I'm happy to answer those questions. One in particular was, and you know, this runs the gamut of questions of whether we are doing certain things that the state feels are the best practice of a local municipality. In particular, you know, do you have the last 3 years of financials on your website? A lot of it is one of the questions is whether you have bonds for your security, for your financial professionals. The comment that we had put in this is we actually answered no to this question because the state requires a bond amount of $1 million of $1 million, but we have $1,090,000, $161, but we have coverage for $1 million. So we don't have necessarily the state prescribed amount of it, but we do have $1 million bonding for those employees. In addition, there was a question, I think on 53, was it, it was 53B, is your if your municipality has designated one or more special improvement districts, do you have a business improvement zone? We answered no to that, because we did not put in a separate ordinance to have a business improvement zone. But again, as we have in years past, we've scored very well on the best practices survey, and we will not see any impact to the state aid that we receive from the state of New Jersey. Happy to answer any other questions that the committee may have. I also have Matt here if there are other questions.
Okay, then, may I have a motion to approve resolution 24-245?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
yes.
Ms. Prufus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or a property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you're attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there's 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter. This is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open public comments.
Charles Bambara, 28 year now, resident of Milburn Short Hills. So I have a little something prepared. Usually I speak off the cuff. Okay. I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues. I am the Lorax who speaks for the trees, which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. And in the final chapter, the Onceler claims, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And sometimes I feel like the Lorax standing here in front of you talking. To borrow a little of Dr. Seuss's logic, I'm Charlie B. I speak to the floods. I speak for the businesses and residents who suffer greatly from those floods you create and perpetuate if you don't act to change our fate. Okay, so if you allow overdevelopment to persist unchecked in this town with little or no attention paid to stormwater runoff, if you pave paradise and put up a parking lot, as Joni Mitchell cautioned, you'll exacerbate an already daunting issue of flooding in the downtown Milburn Business District, as well as residential flooding further downstream. As an illustration, I submit that the plans submitted by the developer for public comment and questioning of the Chi Center are incomplete and severely deficient. Missing are site overlay plans, calculation, and percolation studies for stormwater management. How is a developer going to ensure that runoff from a major storm is detained on site and not added to already overloaded system of existing storm drains and Rahway River tributaries? Detention basins are shown, but no data or calculations to support their sizing or their adequacy. Absent from stormwater plans, I did some calculations of my own of my one illustration. And I conclude that the detention basin will fill in less than an hour in a major storm event. In more frequent storm events that we experience, it'll fill in 2 or 3 hours. Once it tops over, it empties into a storm drain that goes into the west branch of the Royal River, which goes into town, into the business district and the residential area south of there. Now, I sit on the flood mitigation committee. I've spent countless hours of my time trying to find solutions to prevent and contain flooding in town. I'm beginning to feel that I'm wasting my time. In short, I think developers should be required to provide pervious, am I out of time or?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld. I live in the poet section for more than 32 years. For those who are watching at home, please be advised that the agenda was amended before the meeting to add in a new ordinance to approve the amended lease agreement, and that wasn't mentioned, I think, at the beginning of the meeting. The reason I say that, as my custom, I gave various heads up memos about questions about the best practices. I urge everyone to read the best practices inventory, read the questions. I pointed out the mistake on 7A. Before you came here today, you had a closed executive session. We did not hear anything about the abuse of power investigation. We did not hear anything about Bear Properties litigation. I've delivered a 28-day frivolous litigation letter to the TC and their counsel. The clock is running. One issue we heard earlier today was the designation of Main Street, New Jersey. But no one has talked about when the TC knew that the state directed them to amend the boundaries of their application and to amend their budget. How come that major material fact has not been disclosed to the public? When did you know? Again, I offer my assistance in the Mount Laurel litigation. On the bill list, I gave you a list of various checks. There's a major payment that you're making as the monetary sanctions. Are we giving that payments to Fair Share Housing Center and to RPM? Are we reserving our rights to, you may get disgorgement? I don't know, but it says reserve on the list. In addition, based on my experience in other municipalities, sometimes bills are put in drawers. If you look at our municipal attorneys, the only thing we're paying him is his retainer. There's no time summaries for what his work was. And also whether the special adjudicator, what time did he perform the services? Because at the last meeting, we discovered that payments were made for different attorneys for work that they performed last year. The CFO tenure retention, why can't we put that off for one meeting? So we have some answers, because one of the things you have on your agenda is moving funds to different accounts from this year. I don't see anything how we funded 22 East Willow and how we funded the town hall closures, how monies were done, because after you approved the budget, changes occurred, but you don't have any transfers there. As to the SID introduced budget, there's going to be issues whether you obtained updated opinions as to that. I will speak later about other issues later tonight.
Anyone else in the room?
Good evening, Mayor Romano and members of the Township Committee. My name is Matt Greller. I'm an 18-year resident of Millburn and an attorney who works on environmental and public health policy. I'm also a new member of the Township Environmental Committee. And I'm here tonight in support of the measured, reasonable, and incremental seasonal restriction on gas-powered leaf blowers. This is an important quality of life, environmental, and public health issue for Millburn residents. This is especially important right now As you know, in the township, in the county, and in the state, we're facing red flag and drought conditions that are worsening our air quality. As I wrote this today, I was trying to concentrate, but the sound from the nearby gas-powered leaf blowers exceeded 65 decibels in my own house. And outside, those gas-powered leaf blowers can exceed 80 decibels, which is damaging to human hearing. The incessant and loud howls from leaf blowers travel throughout our town and interfere with our quiet enjoyment of our own homes. And speaking of long distances, the fine particulate emissions that come from two-stroke gas-powered leaf blowers in just 30 minutes are the same amount of pollution as a heavy-duty truck during a 3,000-mile drive. If you think about that, that's like driving from here to Juneau, Alaska. Simply put, gas-powered leaf blowers are an environmental and public health disaster. The two-stroke leaf blowers generate double the NOx or oxides of nitrogen, 23 times carbon monoxide, and 300 times of non-methane hydrocarbons on a Ford F-150 pickup. Blowing leaves using the rush of the passing truck alone would be cleaner than using the gas-powered leaf blower. The air pollution is considered a key contributor, according to health reports, to asthma rates, cardiovascular disease, and other public health problems. And multiple peer-reviewed studies directly link exposure of these particulate emissions to severe health problems. The gas-powered leaf blower pollution poisons our environment and they poison our bodies. Why would we want this? Especially when there are widely available, affordable, and powerful electric leaf blowers for residents and landscaping companies. The total cost of ownership of the electric equipment is less than the cost of the gas and the oil for the gas-powered equipment. And this is a measured, reasonable, and incremental ordinance. It's not a ban. It protects quality of life for residents. It mitigates damaging noise and harmful pollution. Residents can still enjoy their lawns how they want, and our hardworking landscapers and their employers can still work to provide their high-quality services in Milburn. This is simply a seasonal restriction, and it seeks to move residents and landscapers towards quieter and less polluting equipment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Brazel. I live in South Mountain, and I'm like Matt, a member of the Environmental Commission. Mayor Romano, Deputy Mayor Saccomandi, Ms. Prupus, Mr. Stoller, and Mr. Cohen. As my fellow EC Commissioner Matt Greller just explained, we passed this ordinance unanimously for solid public health and environmental reasons. I'd like to talk briefly about how we prepared for this decision and how we plan to educate our town about this proposed change. Before discussing a possible ordinance, the Environmental Commission held 2 public meetings to learn more about how our fellow residents and our town's professional landscapers, many of whom are also residents, feel about gas leaf blowers. The first meeting on April 11th focused on the problems that gas leaf blowers bring, which Matt just laid out. For the second meeting on May 23rd, we invited the public, but said we wanted to hear from the landscapers only. We listened carefully and we took notes. We later learned that Milburn that night became the first town in the country to devote a meeting entirely to listening to the landscapers. The landscapers explained that while the technology used in battery and electric leaf blowers is improving, it can't yet match the power of gas. The landscapers also told us that one of the things that makes their jobs harder is the high standards that some homeowners insist on. They described calls from customers saying, in effect, "I just found 3 leaves under a shrub 100 yards from my house." I worked as a landscape laborer, and I know how hard these men and women work. So as we ask the Township Committee to support a seasonal restriction on the use of gas leaf blowers, we will also remind our fellow townspeople that the town is asking landscapers not to use a powerful tool during those months. In the op-eds that we're preparing and in educational sessions that we will give at the Milburn Library, we will explain why we've asked the Township Committee to give us a few months free of the noise and air pollution of gas leaf blowers, And we will urge our fellow Millburn residents to give our landscapers a break. As Matt mentioned, the operating costs of battery and electric blowers are less than gas blowers, but there are initial costs of converting. So I reached out to one of our assemblywomen, Alexin Koyasos Gill, in September, asking her to please support a bill that would give rebates to landscapers and others who convert from gas to battery or electric. I later drove to Trenton to testify to the Assembly Committee on which she sits. Our Assemblywoman did end up voting to support this bill, for which we are grateful. As we educate the town about the value of this ordinance for our children's lungs and ears and for our own, we will continue to ask our fellow residents to please give our landscapers a break. Thank you.
Hi, Jean Pasternak, resident. I'm just going to finish what Charlie started. I sit on the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee and have spent hours upon hours of my time trying to find solutions to prevent or somehow contain flooding in our town. I'm beginning to feel that I'm wasting my time. Luckily, my home does not flood. I have better things to do with my time. If the township is going to allow unchecked overdevelopment, we are all doomed to continued and worsening flooding. There's no point in seeking solutions because with the lack of overlay zoning, without requirements for pervious driveways and parking lots, and with continued overdevelopment, we are working against mounting an impossible odds. Why aren't developers required by ordinance to provide pervious drives and parking, plus plans for dealing with runoff? It is my understanding that a fellow resident and engineer, Mr. Stephen Chu, began questioning the developer's engineer during public questions on this very topic. Before he could continue and get an answer from the engineer, he was rudely interrupted by the developer's attorney. The public questioning session for the engineer was closed before Mr. Chu got a proper response. I maintain that Mr. Chu's First Amendment rights were violated and he should be allowed to continue his line of questioning to the developer's engineer. He saw what I now point out to you. The builder did not adequately address stormwater collection and detention. If the detention basin is of insufficient volume, the builder should be required to store and detain excess water underground in subbasements, as is done in Hoboken and other developed areas. He should be required to use pervious paving techniques such as lattice type pavers with grass grown in between. I'm not going to read the last one because there's no way you're resigning anyway. I'd like to add, I was in attendance at that planning board meeting, and one thing I would really like to ask this township committee to do is immediately start to think about getting a traffic study that is able to look at the global impact of all these new projects. This piecemeal approach with each project coming before the planning board with their traffic studies, it doesn't give you a view of what the hell's going on. So I really believe that it's not responsible of the township committee not to get a more global approach for this whole traffic issue that's coming. And flooding, I think Charlie, raises really important issues. I would say the same thing. I mean, hopefully the Flood Mitigation Committee will be engaged in that way. Safety is another issue that I think people are really concerned about that came up and through this project. I think this is going to be true for all the projects. So what are we doing to look at pedestrian safety, vehicular safety across the board once all these developments are done? The other thing that someone made a comment on that I thought was really important is people are entitled to peaceful enjoyment of their homes. And that is in our New Jersey Constitution. I also don't want to forget to congratulate Dave Cosgrove on his election to the Township Committee. He's a great addition. Thank you for running. And also, of course, Alex, like you said too, Mayor. Great that people put themselves forward. And I had one last quick question on the paper mill lease agreement. Has there been an allowed delay in collecting parking revenues?
Thank you.
Anyone else before we go online? Anyone online?
We just have iPhone.
Okay. So I will now close public comment. Who would like to start? Go ahead, Committeeman Cohen.
Just to address Mr. Rambara, it's unfortunate you were not able to attend the planning board meetings. And as far as the way that works, I guess, at the end of every expert's testimony, that's when the public has the opportunity to ask questions. And the civil engineer who addressed the issues and provided very different answers than you just did, he's completed. However, at the end of everyone's testimony, the public is invited again to give their own testimony. And since, you know, that would seem to me to be another opportunity for you. I don't know when this is all gonna, what night it is that will happen, because I don't know how long this is gonna take. But that would be a good opportunity for both you and Ms. Pasternak to provide testimony, making the points that you did. He did mention his calculations, and they did come up at the second meeting, but I would suspect you may not agree with his calculations. So I would encourage both of you to attend every meeting, and certainly the last one.
Thank you. Commissioner Stoll?
Sure. Chaz, Charlie Bombera, listen, it pains me to see you in with any type of malcontent. I know how much time you spend on the flood mitigation committee. You and I are texting on weekends back and forth, and you know, I really want you to know that we're working to make these processes better, and your involvement has been invaluable. So you know, keep the faith. For the leaf blower seasonal ban, everyone's talking about the peaceful enjoyment. I just want to understand, because I remember hearing a couple of times that the electrical were just as loud as the gas. And I just want to clarify if that's true or not at some point.
I think we'll talk about it during new business, right?
Yeah, so
I think Ms.
just wanted
Deputy
to-
Mayor might have more information.
Okay, so I want to understand that point, but you know, now with people working from home and COVID, I mean, it becomes a nuisance. What else I have here? Mr. Feld, you know, obviously the 22 Willow and the other project were paid for, so you know, I would like to, for Alex or you know, Michael and I are on the finance committee as well. Procedurally, those payments are put in place underneath within the budget. So I just want to make sure that you have an explanation from Alex of how those are paid, so there's no ambiguity or anything nefarious going on that you seem to form a cloud on. So thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sacramento?
Sure. So to Mr. Bambera, you know, I certainly appreciate all that you've done for the town with regards to flooding. I think everyone up here does as well. You know, it's unfortunate that you feel that you're not being heard. I think a lot of people in town are in agreement with regards to the issues that are impacting our town with flooding and how more building leads to more flooding. I would be interested, and we could look at this offline to see if there is some option that municipalities have to put forth ordinances requiring pervious pavers and whatnot. I would imagine that some of these things might be done at a state level, so there's uniformity. I know that like certain building codes and stuff are statewide, but we can certainly ask our council if there's anything we can do there to help tighten things up on a local level. With regards to your specific concerns about the matter before the planning board, my recommendation to you and any other members of the public that have any interest in asking questions or making comments, attend the planning board meetings. Members of the public are also allowed to bring their own expert witnesses to testify as well. That's what we've been told. So, you know, if you are an expert witness, you can certainly testify. You could also bring an expert witness to testify, or if you're a normal resident, you can also testify and say what you want to say and ask questions. So I encourage all those that are concerned about any matters before the planning board to attend the planning board meetings, and there's one tomorrow. Mr. Feld, you asked about the abuse of power investigation. We are going to be releasing that to the public soon. Our attorney just has to go through that and make sure there's nothing that legally has to get redacted from any exhibits, but that will be released soon. Let's see. I'll allow Mr. Cantor to answer whether the funds that you discussed that were court ordered are being put in, a separate account or being paid out, that's a matter for Mr. Cantor, so hopefully he'll answer that for us. Mr. Brazell and Mr. Greller, thank you so much for coming out and speaking and letting us know a little bit more about the steps that you guys are going to take to educate the public. We'll talk about this more during new business, but I think it was helpful for everyone up here to hear what you had to say. And then Ms. Pasternak, with regards to the traffic study, I agree, and this is why all year I've been harping on the need for a townwide traffic study. I believe we have bid proposals, and I believe they then went to some municipal agency.
The comparison of the proposals and recommendation of the assistant engineer on steps forward.
Okay, so that'll be made available to us, and then we can decide what to do.
Correct, yeah, and I'll add to that when I.
Perfect. And then the question about the paper mill and the delayed parking revenue, it does look like in the documents I was provided that revenue would not be collected until 2027, I think. So that's something that we can address, or we can ask at the hearing for that matter. That's all I have. Thanks.
Committeewoman Purpose?
And
The only thing I want to add with the traffic study, I believe we did a traffic study for complete streets in 2014, 15. So there's still a lot of information in there that was never acted upon. So I think that before, and I have no idea, what Mr. McDonald has, but maybe we should look, ask the engineer for any type of, to pull those reports for us. I'm sure if we speak to the police department, they can tell us where the problem areas are in town, because I don't see, and again, I'm not an engineer, but I don't see where we can make changes to traffic when everyone comes through town that travels down Route 24. There's nothing we can do to stop that. Wherever your navigation tells you to go, when you're driving, there's nothing we can do to change that. Uber drivers that come into town, DoorDash drivers that come into town, there's nothing we can do to change that. So if you would just review, see what engineering has from those last traffic studies and maybe go from there. Just a suggestion. Mr. McDonald?
Sure. Just to piggyback on the traffic study question. We received 3 proposals, as I had mentioned in a previous meeting. Those proposals ranged in dollar amount from $234,000 to $129,500. I had the assistant engineer who has a background in traffic. She used to be employed by Union County traffic engineer. And she made her analysis of each of the 3 proposals, provided her recommendation. I would just also, and I think that some of, and we can speak about this further after your review, is just, when and how to proceed. And certainly I think it's important for the Township Committee, whether it's Deputy Mayor Sacamandi or another individual, to meet with the firm that is recommended. So that you have an understanding of what it is that they're looking at, and their grasp of what it is that the committee may or may not want to evaluate. But I'm happy to provide any previous reports that the committee may want as it relates to traffic. I'll speak more to the paper mill lease at that point in time. I'm sure there's going to be on several of the agenda items, questions that I can speak to, but that's all I had in terms of comments.
I just answered the deputy mayor's question. We were ordered to pay fees to Fair Share Housing and RPM as a result of the last round of motion practice. We held those funds in a trust account for the township. There were motions filed in court to have those monies turned over, and based on the court order and the fact that the appeal was denied by the appellate division, we did turn those monies over to Fair Share Housing and RPM.
Okay, thank you. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to move resolution 24-246 through resolution 24-255, which are listed on the consent agenda? May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Madam Judge, but Mr. Stoller did ask a question about the $2.2 million to pay for East Willow, and I'm just hoping that Mr. Larison could.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Stoller did ask a question about the $2.2 million for East Willow, and I just want Mr. Larison, now that he could probably leave the meeting if he wanted to answer that question real quick. My apologies.
Sorry.
Yeah, we had a bond ordinance for the 2.2 million for East Willow. Again, we have kind of one pot of capital cash and we go out for funding at different times. We're able to make that payment with the cash already within our, accounts. But we will have to actually fund that at a later date, probably early 2025, which is when our normal bond sale happens, note sale happens. So it's costly a little bit to have note sales, so you want to kind of plan them and have a big picture view of all that. And then I think there was another question regarding the funding of the closure of Town Hall Plaza there. And those costs weren't too high. We're able to absorb that in our equipment, public buildings and grounds budgets. Just within our normal operating budget, maybe we push some other costs off and we're able to just absorb it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-256? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-256?
So moved.
Thanks. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-257? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-257?
So moved.
May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-258? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-258? May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
No.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
The budget introduction for 2025 for the Milburn Short Hills Business Organization. Mr. Committeeman Stoller?
Sure. So this is the introduction of the budget for the Special Improvement District. I am the liaison and a voting member of the board. I'm actually going to talk to a couple to the KPIs as it results this. That's the reason I put myself on this board or requested my fellow TC members let me be on it so I can have a clear path of vision to what is actually occurring. I think we're going to start with with our chair giving opening introduction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Romano, members of the Township Committee, Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg here. I serve as chair of the Board of Explore Milburn Short Hills. During my time as mayor in 2020, I worked closely with current committee member Tara Prupus and current Explore board member Richard Wasserman to launch the Special Improvement District. 4+ years later, I am proud of all the work we have undertaken and the hundreds of businesses, property owners, residents, and strategic partners we support and collaborate with on an ongoing basis. To support these efforts going forward, this evening, we will present our 2025 budget, which was approved by our board at our annual meeting in October. I will begin with how the budget is developed and how the SID operates. Our treasurer, Stephen Weiner, will discuss our accomplishments in 2024, and our committee liaison, Ben Stoller, as he mentioned, will discuss the KPI indicators. And then our executive director, Mr. Grillo, will present the budget. To understand how the SID budget is constructed and how many funds are allocated, it is important first to understand what a special improvement district is. A SID is a public-private partnership between the three groups: the municipality that establishes the SID, the stakeholders, property and business owners and residents who are supported by it, and the DMC, the District Management Corporation, in this case, Explore, which is responsible for managing it. SIDs do not replace government, but they do supplement it in very important ways. The SID works as a unique problem solvers. They address day-to-day concerns for stakeholders, solve time-sensitive issues, and develop unique vision plans for both the organization and the community at large, which can be advanced by the municipality. They are staffed by professionals and experts in the fields of economic development, marketing, events, and community development. They are managed by boards of dedicated volunteers who seek long-term benefits for the community and address issues that are sometimes out of the scope or ability of government. When SIDs successfully partner with the municipality, they can lessen the burden on the municipality and deliver services more efficiently. A good example of this is the street maintenance pilot program that was executed this year. Explore developed a list of vendors, crafted and distributed an RFP, selected the qualified vendor, and then managed the daily oversight while the township paid for the services via a grant. SIDs are independent nonprofit organizations and are eligible to apply for grants and special programs to advance the economic development opportunities, such as the Main Street application that was submitted by the township but drafted by the SID. Additionally, our experienced staff allows the SID to have a valuable voice and advocate for stakeholders concerning zoning, planning, parking, traffic circulation, and more. Our executive director serves on both the parking committee and the development review committee and represents Explore on the board of Downtown New Jersey, as well as our local Chamber of Commerce. SIDs are mirrors of the communities they represent. One size does not fit all because no two communities are the same or have the same needs or ambitions. The SID here in Milburn has its own unique service portfolio that is constantly evolving, and we pride ourselves on a holistic and highly participatory decision-making. I'd like to have Mr. Weiner, our treasurer, continue with this overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening. As Jackie said, my name is Stephen Weiner. I serve on the board and also its treasurer for the SID. And I apologize in advance. 2024 has been a super busy year. So if this comes out as a bullet point list, I apologize, but I do want to get through a number of the big projects that we accomplished this year. So one item we started in 23 and really worked hard to finish in this year was expanding our community and volunteer engagement. So we expanded our volunteer pool as well as our advisory committee membership, partnered with local nonprofits, including the Neighbors of Milburn Short Hills Group and the Indian, Chinese, and Muslim communities. A hallmark of this work was this year's public art program called Mill Wheels 2024, where we had over a dozen local community organizations participate. Those are those Mill Wheels physical setup in Taylor Park. They were beautiful this year. We expanded our educational services this year and hosted classes on various topics, including using Google for small businesses, search engine optimization, digital marketing, and social media. We worked with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, including a special session with local business New Frontier Storefront on the state's free website program. That's a terrific program. In fact, 9 businesses enrolled in that, and they each walked away with a new website, it valued at $10,000 or more. So a free service from the state, all facilitated through our work at the SID. We expanded one-on-one marketing sessions that included setting up social media accounts for businesses. Surprisingly, many businesses just are not on social media. So we really focused on those and helped them and trained them and educated them how to use social media to the advantage of the business. We launched a partnership with Millburn and Short Hills Magazine, which includes a monthly feature on local community events, and managed a welcome package program for residents at both the Hearth and the Metropolitan. We also launched a new social media campaign called Tour of the Town, which already has 30 new videos released and posted online, which has highlighted businesses in all 5 districts of the CID. We once again, here's part of the laundry list, hosted Restaurant Week, Founding Day, Girls Night Out, and a Halloween event, and have 4 events scheduled coming into toward the end of this year, including, I think as was mentioned earlier, our winter villages. 2 new efforts this year included a partnership with the school district's Wellness Week, during which a dozen businesses participated, and of course, as we mentioned, Town Hall Plaza. We also expanded our placemaking work with a new mural in the Millburn Art Alley, completed the Morris Turnpike Hardscape project, and installed 6 new planters on Upper Millburn Avenue with native plants in partnership with a local organization. We also completed that, I think Jackie mentioned, a successful street cleaning project, and are now working on our 5-year holiday decoration and improvement plan throughout the town. So Mr. Stoller, I think you want to now focus on our KPIs. Thank you.
When I joined the board in January, there was a lot of noise around the board on what were they doing, how were they doing it, is there an ROI on the board, on the group, and how is it working? So I requested that Mr. Grillo and the team come up with key performance indicators. Every business I run, I have a collection of businesses. We have a dashboard for each one. We have the dials that show us if they're in the green and the yellow and the red, et cetera. So I wanted to have that type of visibility on what was going on the SID, on the Special Improvement District. And you know, it's a little more difficult to do because you don't have an actual number that you quantify, but you have a lot of other numbers that you can quantify, which makes it even that much greater. And I'll go through some of those now. The number one, to quantify what they're doing was an email I received from a local business owner. I said, hey, we participated with the SID to help build our website, give us exposure on Instagram, and also take them to actually become a local provider for Amazon for that service where you want it by 4 a.m. or 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, and is kind of a local supplier for those products. To me, that's making a big difference to possibly keep that business owner in business going forward when a lot of businesses, especially retail, and are being beat up by Amazon and other delivery services. If you don't have a KPI, you can't measure the degree of success, and you definitely can't fix it. So it's incredibly important to quantify those various services that the Explorer is providing. Just a few of the numbers quickly. We have 509 total businesses, with 27 have opened this year. We have addressed 139 service requests from various stakeholders, including 32 requests for space, 56 navigating government requests, and 51 requests for general business advocacy, as I mentioned before. The pay stations in downtown, Short Hill Station and Upper Millburn, through just the first 3 quarters have generated approximately $328,000 in revenue. And at the end of this year, we will compare that to the previous tracked years. Explorer has conducted 8 digital campaigns, reaching nearly 3,030 people on email distribution, which is a 400% increase since December 2024. 3,900 Instagram followers, that's just followers, which is an 850 person increase since December 2024. And 424,000 Instagram engagements, conducted 28 one-on-one marketing consultations with individual businesses, as I discussed before. 184 businesses have participated in Restaurant Week, Girls Night Out, Town Hall Plaza, and fall into Millburn Short Hills. Participation came from over 80 different communities and engaged over 40 volunteers. 23 sponsors, we had 23 sponsors and raised nearly $27,000 for just these events. 160 businesses have participated in various community partnership projects, including the Metropolitan and Hearth welcome packages. These are packages to the new residents, Town Hall Plaza and Wellness Week. We've also engaged 21 non-business community organizations, including a dozen through the Mill Wheels project, as we just discussed. Finally, the most significantly, due to work of our executive director and Mr. Grillo, we are awarded with the coveted Main Street, New Jersey designation. Now, there's only 25 New Jersey communities that have received that Main Street designation since 1989, which represents only 4% of the municipalities in the state and 25% of the existing SIDS. The Main Street New Jersey program is the statewide arm of national Main Street programs, and this is the highest designation possible for any local economic development organization. It provides technical assistance, training, and capital dollars to communities. It provided $150,000 worth of grants to Red Bank and Metuchen for physical improvements, just because they were members and they put in for it. So we will now have that opportunity going forward. We supported our executive director to submit the application in February. He drafted the application with the assistance of the board of directors and 8 community organizations and elected officials. And there's a formal announcement from the governor's office that will be done for our onboarding process. The township taxpayers, and here's some of the numbers, not including SID assessed properties, contributed approximately $55,000 towards salaries and $23,000 towards Town Hall Plaza in 2024, while raising nearly $50,000 in sponsorships. So they almost doubled the salaries just in sponsorships alone. And these are paid sponsorships from all of the folks sponsoring the township, the Town Hall Plaza, and other events that are had. Just fantastic work. I can firmly state that I believe our $78,000 investment as a town was well spent, and the numbers speak for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Grillo. I'm the Executive Director of Explore Milburn Short Hills. Thank you, Ben, Jackie, Stephen. I'm going to go through the budget itself. So Tim, if you wouldn't mind pulling that up. While he's doing that, so before I present the budget, I just want to state on the record that we did present this budget to the public, both at our September 19th workshop meeting, that was a draft, and then October 19th in its final form, which is our annual meeting. Public comment was allowed in both sessions, and all property and business owners in the district were invited to that annual meeting, as well as provided a copy of the budget prior to that meeting. Additionally, we're proud to say the 2025 budget, which all of you have received copies of, is the most detailed, robust, and transparent that we've ever provided, really because we've diversified our portfolio so significantly. Specifically, committee member Prupus asked us to fundraise and secure sponsors last year. We actually estimated we would raise about $29,000. We've ended up raising $50,000. Committeeman Stoller asked us to develop key performance indicators. He just detailed those. And then, of course, we were tasked with creating Town Hall Plaza on essentially 2 months' notice. And I think anyone that has attended it can say that it was a dramatic success. But obviously, all of this work takes funding. And so both the staff, the organization, and then to purchase supplies and equipment and provide services. So the 2025 budget's divided into 6 sections. Those have all been made available to the Township Committee as well as the public. And the sections are as follows. And don't worry, I'm not going to go through all 6 of them. Is the budget by source of revenue, which is the only one I'm going to discuss tonight. You all have received a 2025 budget narrative, which is line by line, a comparative budget 24 to 25, a review of the proposed assessment increase, which I will discuss, key performance indicators through October 2024. So everything that Ben had talked about is written down in your packets, and then our annual success tracker, which is year to date. On the income side, which you see here, we're proposing a total budget of $401,288, which is then reduced because we hold $20,000 in reserve to cover operational costs between January and February, and then when the funds are actually collected in April and May. As many of you know, tax bills, you can potentially approve the budget in December, but we don't actually see any money into our account until May or so. So we need a little bit of a nest egg to keep up operations. So this results in a spendable budget, as you see on line 9, of $381,288. We derive funding from 6 general funding sources, which you see, and I'll go through. The assessment is collected from 161 assessed properties. That totals in 2025, $244,565. This is an increase of $40,565 or 20%. Nearly all of this increase will be spent on to support stakeholder-facing services related to events, marketing, public art, plantings, and street maintenance. This is also the first increase that's ever been requested since the formation of the SID and matches the significant growth in our service portfolio across the 5 districts. In 2024, we secured approximately $50,000 in sponsorships, as I mentioned, and for the purposes of this budget, we're estimating that we'll raise $40,000 next year. Of course, that's a moving target and we're being conservative, but we will adjust services as necessary. We were also recently notified that we've been awarded $5,565 from Essex County for our 3rd year of public art funding. This requires a 50% match from the assessment, so you'll see later on that the total project expenses are $11,000. The income is $5,565. The township's required to pay half of the executive director's salary, which is shown here at $56,158. And we're also requesting 2 discretionary funding items from the township. The first is $35,000 to cover the majority of the cost associated with managing Town Hall Plaza. As Town Hall Plaza is limited to a very specific area in the downtown, we believe that the township should cover a portion of the cost and not the assessed stakeholders across the 5 districts. The $35,000 is $7,500 more than the township provided in 2024, but we do expect a longer activity period, and we'd like to add more seating, gazebos, and other visitor experience items. The funds for this will not be paid to Explore, so it won't be an income item. These are things that we go to the town, ask them to order. They then order it through their accounts and credit cards, so it never appears on our financial ledgers. We're also requesting that the township allocate $20,000 from the New Jersey Clean Communities Program. That is to continue what was a very successful pilot program for street cleaning and weeding throughout the 5 districts this summer. We also plan to put $8,000 of assessment money towards that to extend the period where we can provide the services. So now that I've gone through the income revenue section, I'm happy to pause and answer any questions related to those items. I will then proceed. So then on the expenses side, we have 4 main categories: management, professional services and operations, services excluding the street closure, and then the street closure itself, which you'll see here broken down into those 4 buckets. They're broken down on the income side of the budget into 4 columns, B through E. And so you'll see the source of the revenue: assessment, non-discretionary from the town, which is a portion of my salary, the township discretionary payments, which I mentioned, and then other sources or grants or sponsorship. On the management side, my total compensation for 2025 is $112,316 per an existing contract. Half is paid by the assessment, half is paid by the township. Our Director of Marketing, Amanda Dean, is currently compensated at $60,000, and our board has authorized a $5,000 increase to her contract for a total of $65,000 for 2025. If the budget is approved by the Township Committee, her contract will then be amended to reflect that new compensation. There are 2 part-time administrative positions that we've proposed. The first is a compensated summer intern to work on economic development projects at a cost of $2,000. We had a wonderful college intern, local resident this year. He's actually going to be presenting a report at our meeting on Thursday. So it was a great opportunity to work with a local student, and we gave them a stipend for his time spent. The second is a marketing and events assistant for the amount of $15,000. This is a 1-day-a-week position. It will help Amanda on various tasks, including event planning, business engagement, social media scheduling, filming, posting, and other tasks. It's also going to lessen the burden that Amanda and I have in doing things that really aren't within what you're hoping to pay us for in our job scope, going out and handing out posters and things like that. This is certainly a position that can be done by someone other than the executive director. So the total expense is $194,316. Professional services, that category remains virtually the same for 2024, same as 2024, I should say. The only change of note is the addition of a board training session for $1,000. We haven't done one in 3 years, so it's a good time for us to go through that with our board and explain to them some of the obligations of a nonprofit board. An increase of $3,000 for email and technology services. We were under budgeted this year. A lot of the subscriptions and things that we have, like our email distribution list, et cetera, those costs have gone up, so we need to buffer that there. And then an additional $700 that we'd like to allocate to our website to upgrade and create directory improvements as well as interactive calendars. Our directory and calendars certainly need an update. So that brings a total expense of $34,124, of which $21,500 is dedicated to legal and audit services. In terms of general services, that represents our public facing services. So we're proposing an event budget of $30,000, and we expect the majority of that revenue is going to come from sponsorships, as you see in column E. We're also reallocating our marketing budget to have a new line called social media influencers, which we'll use to promote the town events and businesses. That's been something that we've been hearing quite a bit from our businesses, that they get a lot of attention when a social media influencer is hired to promote an event or their business. And so we're going to allocate a specific amount of money this year to hiring those folks. Then one of our most expensive services is streetscaping and planting. So we've proposed a total budget of $20,000. That includes mulching 50 tree pits throughout the town, which we've done every year since inception, as well as spring and fall plantings and various other design elements. Related to that, we'd like to do a post-winter refresh and expansion of the Morris Turnpike streetscaping project that we started this year. And as I mentioned, we're going to put $8,000 of our assessment budget into the $20,000 provided for the town for street sweeping and for weeding to extend that another 6 weeks. I mentioned the Essex County grant for public art, so that brings that total cost to $103,630. And then finally, in terms of Town Hall Plaza, we've requested $35,000, as I mentioned. We also intend to allocate $6,200 from the assessment and $8,000 from sponsorships. Town Hall Plaza was actually our #1 sponsorship driver this year, which was pretty interesting. It's the first year, obviously, that we had tried it, and it was a huge revenue driver for us. Here, we'd like to have $10,000 towards someone that can help assist on that project. Amanda and I are here every single weekend, usually 2 nights on a weekend. Be nice to have someone that could help set it up and break it down and work with us on that. Of course, we have to pay for the live music, gazebos, additional seating, branded barrier covers, and planting. So really just to create the ambiance in that space. So before I discuss the assessment increase, are there any other questions on the expenses side?
Yes, have all the sponsorships that were pledged actually been paid out? Have you guys received all of the funds that were promised from those sponsors?
Yes, actually, I can provide you a copy that we're presenting at our Thursday meeting. We have, I suppose it's about 98, 99% collected. There's only one that's outstanding, and that's because it's not due until December 1st. So 100% of what has been promised has been collected. Any other questions? And thank you to Amanda, who's done an amazing job getting those sponsorships out and getting them collected. So in terms of the assessment increase, so we've talked about a $40,000 increase, 44, I should say. So in 2024, the assessed properties have an average assessment. Now, this is from the smallest assessed property to the largest of $1,267. That's the average. With a proposed $40,000 increase, the average assessment will go up by $266 for all 161. So of the 67 properties which pay between $100 and $499 for the year, their average increase will go up $65. 113 properties, or 70% of the total, will see an average increase of less than $175 for the year. Considering the increase, this in context, after adding the $40,000 for Milburn Short Hills, we still have the lowest assessment in comparison to Summit, Springfield, and Livingston, but we serve almost the exact same number of businesses as Springfield, over 500, and more than twice as many as Summit. So I think we've been operating on a shoestring budget to begin with, and I think we need this additional funding to become even more competitive with our surrounding communities. And that is our presentation. We thank you all for your patience tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
We can have time for discussion, or is it just a question?
If you have any comments that you want to.
I do have a few comments. So what we heard tonight is that the SID is an independent nonprofit organization. I get that. So my concern is that the township, town residents, the taxpayers are funding a portion of the executive director's salary, some $50-some thousand. Now, when the SID was first getting started, I could see the town chipping in for that. But now that it's more established, I think it's time that the town no longer continue having to pay for the salaries of the people that work for the SID. Because remember, the point of the SID is to help the businesses in town. The businesses in town are primarily the ones that are funding it, and they're the ones getting the benefit. So if they feel that they're getting the value that they, should get out of this, then they should be the ones to pay for the executive director's portion of the salary. Additionally, and I brought this up in prior meetings, I think there are still complaints from businesses in town that feel that it's taxation without representation. I think the governance structure of the SID needs to be modified so that the businesses that are actually paying into the SID have more input and control over who is on the board. There should be designated positions that could be elected by the people that actually pay into the SID. I think that would be more fair and more transparent. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to get much traction, but I think we're at a different spot now than we were 4 years ago. And yes, I think there's a lot of businesses that benefit, but I think at a certain point, the residents should not have to be subsidizing this program that's for the benefit of the businesses. Also, I would venture to guess that if you made the SID contributions optional, the majority of the businesses that are currently paying into the SID would probably stop. So in that case, I'd really question the overall value of this to those businesses.
I have a question. Are you done? Sorry,
Yes.
I have a question. Have you guys notified the business? Yeah. Have you notified the businesses of the increase of the assessment? Does anybody know what's going on?
Yes, so every business and property owner was served with a copy of the budget, which included a narrative that details the assessment increase.
Okay, so something was dropped off to me.
You should have received it via email.
I'm gonna go check to my email.
You should probably have received it in early October.
Okay, so I think that now that we're voting on it, I mean, and I don't remember seeing that email. I think that the businesses, before we vote on it, people need to be notified that this increase is happening.
Which we did.
No, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm telling you that, like, for myself, sitting up here and as a business owner, I did not see that email.
Okay.
Okay, I understand that you put it out there. What I'm asking you to do is to put it out there again, maybe in a separate email, like to let people know that, to even let the businesses know that this is being voted on right now by the TC, just to give people an opportunity to come out one way or the other. Like, as always, I think it's really important to hear from the businesses themselves and the property owners for them to come advocate for the organization. And I think it's also important that you let them know that this increase is happening.
Sure.
Just to
Awesome.
add real quickly to that, sending an email, that should not be deemed official notice. I don't know what your bylaws require, but you guys should make a modification if necessary. When the township has to send out official notices, they do so through the mail. And in some cases, things are sent via certified mail. With spam filters and all that people have, an email is not sufficient notice. I think you guys need to find a better way of more reliably ensuring that the notices are delivered, and I would recommend using certified mail. I think that would be a more appropriate way to disseminate that information. You could do an email in addition, but then no one could really say, oh, well, we didn't get it.
Just to be clear, the ordinance and the bylaws say that if we have an email address, that is sufficient. If we don't, we have to send it via hard mail. We sent about 25 or so via hard mail. So we follow the letter of the ordinance and the bylaw.
And I'm suggesting that the ordinance and or bylaws, or both, should be amended so that we have a more reliable form of notice.
That is the responsibility of the Township Committee. We follow the rules that we were required to follow.
Okay, so we should probably look at as tightening that up for notice. I agree, notice should be done maybe by mail with some type of reply, et cetera, et cetera. But, that's good. I think that is a good suggestion.
We don't get our tax bills certified mail. It's kind of, right? So maybe, I agree, maybe a mail, but a certified mail,
Is a cause.
yeah,
All right, well, let's not be unburdened by what has been.
whatever. I just,
the process is the process, the procedure, they follow the procedure. So the question really is the value that the SID brings much more, and do we support it versus, the alternative, which would be hiring a big $200,000 guy or something to come in-house and work internally for Alex and be a part of the town, et cetera. Having sat front row at every, I didn't miss a meeting this year, that I can unequivocally say the value that they've put forward, certainly we could not get that from one person working in Township and Town Hall. And, just applause to what you guys have brought forward. I mean, Township Plaza was a huge success, and then the sponsorships and such.
But Ben, one thing about Township Plaza, and kudos for you guys for figuring it out, and it's amazing that you did it, and it was a great success. I'm not sure that the businesses, the people that are paying into it, would directly relate that success for the community and the people coming.
Did we run this township for the residents, not for the
But the
businesses?
SID
I think we have to go
actually-
one at a
wait,
time.
hold on.
We have to go one at a
The SID
time.
is actually
One at a
for the
time.
businesses, not
I
the
know,
residents.
but it's
One at a time.
A very strong business community supports the residents. We have a beautiful downtown with entertainment. We were the envy of New Jersey this year with the beautiful paper mill shows and the Town Hall Plaza, which was packed just about every night. So it's all intertwined. You can't really separate the two.
Can I just say something? The SID does not only support the businesses, but it supports the residents. Because if you were here over the summer, every weekend, our downtown was packed. Town Hall Plaza was packed. And a lot of these people came from out of town. And a lot of these people told us how they wished their towns did something like this for the staycationers.
So then the
So-
increase should go to the town, right, for the residents.
Tara, we have to go one at a time. I just wanted to make a statement.
I was just gonna say, so we can't have it both ways. If it doesn't, if it does support the residents, which I think it does, but that's why we're paying, that is Deputy Mayor Sacamani just said we should stop contributing to the executive director's salary. So the town is paying a portion of the budget, and that is the portion that, I don't know that it matches dollar for dollar, but there is a portion of this budget that services the residents, and that's why the town is kicking in part of the money.
But the increase is not going to the town. The increase of the town budget that the town is gonna pay, we're increasing at 5,000 to match your increase in salary? How much more is the town increase? What is the town's increase to the budget? How much more will the town be paying of the budget of that $40,000 increase versus the business assessment?
Zero. The 40,000 is an assessment put on the
Right.
businesses.
Sure.
There's the discretionary money, right, that we talked about.
Right.
The 20,000 that comes from a grant, which you could use for something else if you wanted. And the 35,000 that we talked about from Town Hall Plaza.
Okay, so maybe it's like 35,000, then you're asking more from the town, and 40,000 is coming from the businesses.
Correct. Our special assessment, right, which forms the bulk of the budget. We're requesting a 20% increase, which is the $40,000. There's funds from other sources, but specific to the assessment, that comes 100% from the assessed properties.
So I guess the point is if the value is equal to the residents, and I'm separate than Frank, right? So I'm making a different point than Frank's making. But if the value to the residents is equal to the values to the business, then it should be they should both be paying the same amount extra increased.
Oh, to be fair, the town did kick in extra money specifically for the Town Hall Plaza, right? They bought gazebos or signage, other stuff. So there was more than the executive director's salary that was contributed by the town. And that money went specifically to the Town Hall Plaza closure. So I think you could make the argument that the town did contribute more.
That is fine. The only thing that I'm saying is that the businesses should be notified that their assessment is going to be increased in a way that it got to them, and an email is not sufficient.
That is all I'm saying.
Prior to the December.
Thank you.
And it's to the property owner or to the business owner? So might as well go down this rabbit hole.
Technically, it is only the assessed property owner. However, we go the extra mile and we serve every property owner as well as every single business. We are not legally required to serve the businesses, but we do it.
All right, so articulate that a little further, how that happens.
So again, we follow the rules set forth in the ordinance and the bylaws. Prior to our annual meeting, every property owner and every business owner receives an email stating the date of the meeting, that there's public participation, and we submit a copy of the budget that you guys have in your packets. That 6 slide packet. Everyone received that. Anyone that does not have an email address on file, which I mentioned is only about 25 property owners or so, they receive a hard copy letter in the mail. That's it. So in the end, about 700 individuals receive notice that the annual meeting is occurring, they're invited to participate, and they receive a copy of the budget that's being discussed. There's also, at our September meeting, a workshop on that budget, as you know. So we actually went over that budget and presented it publicly twice, and now we've presented it publicly for the 3rd time tonight.
How many property owners showed up to your annual business meeting?
None.
And because you said received, that they received it, you sent it.
Correct.
You have no idea who actually received that email in terms of them reading it and knowing what's happening. And all I'm saying, Steve, I think you're doing a great job. All I'm saying is we should just, I would like to see an effort made just to get that information out there. And I would also like to see all the property owners show up to this meeting on December 17th and say, we love the SID. We want the SID.
Mm-hmm. Well, we did that last year. As you recall, we had a huge number of people that came out. If you would like us to do that again,
I would like to see
we'll
it.
happily
I would like to
engage
hear it from them when I vote that we're gonna increase the budget by $40,000. I would like to see them come out and say, yes, we love it. It's working for us. We want to keep it. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, right now, there's no mechanism for the businesses that pay into this to say whether they, want to participate or whether they find value in it. And I would hope that before we continue to fund this or fund any increases, that we should find out from the businesses if the majority of them are happy to pay this tax and feel they're getting the value out of it. Great, that would be good feedback to have, but there should be some way that we can do a survey.
So that's not true.
Some input.
So we have a meeting every month. It's subject to Open Public Meetings Act. Most SIDs do not follow Open Public Meetings Act. We have one property owner, Perry Urso, who attends every meeting virtually and constantly expresses her displeasure. Nobody else does. She can, but nobody else does. So it's not fair and not true to say that there's no mechanism for someone to express their displeasure. They absolutely can. That doesn't happen. And so I think we need to be careful that we're not inventing displeasure simply because you don't hear it, right? If you don't hear it, it may not exist. And so I think you're taking liberties a bit to say that there's all these people who have displeasure.
Respectfully,
But
Steve,
they
I've
can
spoken
show up
to
every month.
business
Deputy
owners.
Mayor, just let him finish. Let him finish, please.
Respectfully, I've spoken to other business owners in town, and they have expressed their displeasure at the SID, okay? They may not be inclined to show up at a meeting to express their displeasure because some of them are concerned there could be potential backlash or ramifications.
Stop.
That's.
I wish I was that powerful.
That's what I heard. So,
Come
look,
on.
I think,
Yeah, wait.
Look over here.
Excuse me, excuse
I
me.
think it's reasonable that there's at some point some sort of survey, or, if at the next meeting you come forward with all these letters of support, then, that would be a sign that this is something that the businesses want and not just tolerate.
And last year, when we came with letters of support, I think we had over 50 of them. The Township Committee said, of course, they wrote letters of support. They benefit from it. Yeah, that's generally when people write letters of support, when they find benefit. It's the same discussion every year. It's actually quite tiring. Ben went over KPIs, tangible, data-driven KPIs that you seem to be ignoring because you're looking for displeasure that doesn't voice itself. I'm confused by that.
No, I'm taking a critical look at something that our residents are paying into. and that our businesses are paying into. And I'm looking at the structure of it, and what I'm realizing is it doesn't seem that the businesses really have as much input into how this money is spent and used as they should. They don't have direct representation on the board. They don't get to elect members of the SID board.
Which is a separate issue than the budget.
Well, when you approve the budget, you're approving the program to move forward. If you don't fund it, then you can force it to be.
You could also fund it and
Yeah,
change
okay.
the ordinance. You could change the bylaws.
We could.
You could do that simultaneously, right? You could say that I support the services you're providing, therefore I want to support the budget, but simultaneously, I'd like to change the ordinance or I'd like to change the bylaws. You could do that.
I would like to change the ordinance and the bylaws. Unfortunately, don't think we have a consensus.
Okay, can we
But that's-
continue
that's-
with the
That's the
budget?
beauty of township government, that's how it works. You
Yeah.
have 5 people representing the interests of all constituents, not just Republicans, that's not just Democrats, not just a handful of displeased business owners, property owners, et cetera. You're making the best decision, so you have all the information coming in, you have to make a decision based on what you believe. Sitting here, I'm not gonna go into the back and forth, being at every meeting, understanding the KPIs we put in place, I feel it is a worthy increase and I'm gonna support it.
Thank you, Committeeman. I just want to applaud all the work that the SID board has done. And thank you to Mr. Grillo and Ms. Dean. I've seen you work 24/7 to make this community what it is. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
I'll just add that anecdotally, as a representative of the Arboretum, who was looking to increase their awareness, what the board did there was to reach out to the SID, who's not required to support them as they're not a business, but as we've already developed a partnership with the SID to increase to work on events, work as partners, and the Arboretum would kind of be stuck being able to do that on their own. So that's also a benefit where the SID has gone above and beyond to help parts of
Michael,
the town.
Thank
how
you.
would that help? I have one more thing to say here, and it's really important. So please don't, just let me have the
But we
time to
could
say.
we could do this for hours.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's
Go ahead.
But isn't that what we're
Go
here
ahead.
for?
No,
Right.
go ahead.
Okay, so, right, you just said that the SID is helping the Arboretum, which is amazing, right? I think it's great. But the question I have is, so at what point where is the responsibility of the SID to? Is it to the business owners or is it to all the organizations in town? What is the mission of the SID? Is it to bring all the organizations and all the nonprofits in town together and to unify the town and to make this town have all these great events for the entire town? Or is it to help the businesses?
It's to help
And
the
wh-
businesses to be the best that they can be so that they can
Is the
provide for its
Arboretum a
residents.
business?
Well,
How does the Arboretum help the businesses in town?
it's a piece, the Arboretum is a piece of the community.
Yes, totally. And the
Right.
Arboretum is a gem and a jewel, and we love it and amazing.
Okay,
But how does the Arboretum help the businesses?
so we're gonna continue. The public hearing and consideration of
No,
adoption.
I want to say one final thing. So this year, we had a ballot measure, right? As to whether the town wanted a new tax or trust fund. And the residents, the people that were paying into it, got a choice. The business owners and the property owners of those commercial buildings in town did not get the choice. They didn't get a vote. What I'm saying is they should have a vote as to whether they should continue to have to pay this tax.
Thank you, thank you.
So if-
The public hearing and consideration of adoption of the 2025 budget is scheduled for December 17th Township Committee meeting, which begins at 7 PM here at Town Hall. The introduced budget is available on the Township Clerk's office, in the Township Clerk's office, and will be posted on the Township website. Once the annual assessment roll is certified by our tax assessor, letters will be sent to each property owner within the district, and the full roll will be posted on our website. The annual assessment roll will also be scheduled to be before the committee at a future meeting. Is there a motion to approve resolution 24-259?
Yes, motion.
Second.
Oh, you have to move it.
I move that resolution 24-259 be approved and that the township clerk be authorized to have the budget notice published on November 21st, 2024 in accordance with law, and that the public hearing and final passage be scheduled for December 17th, 2024. Township committee meeting beginning at 7 PM.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
No.
Mr. Stoller?
Absolutely.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2692-24.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2692-24. Ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Alex, will you be able to provide a brief description of this? Very specific with the zoning. I believe this is the one where we're
This is
rolling back the.
The front yard
chain-
setback,
yeah, so what this ordinance does is it reverts the change that was made last year to the prevailing front yard setbacks. The zoning board was getting a lot of requests for variances, and there were a lot of problems with what was done last year. So they've taken that into account and we're adjusting that. So that's what this is for. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirm.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, ordinance 2693-24.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2693-24. An ordinance authorizing the Township of Milburn to execute a residential property lease for that certain property located on block 4901, lot 3 in the Township of Milburn. So briefly, this is going to authorize the township, this is the easement, correct?
This is the lease for the parcel house.
This is the lease for the parcel house, sorry. I have a
There's
number
a
of
lot-
these that we're
a lot
going,
on this agenda.
going through, and they don't tell me which is which on here. So this is for the parasol house. So I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I am sponsoring ordinance 2694-24. I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2694-24. Ordinance amending chapter 7 traffic of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Milburn. The proposed amendment to chapter 7 traffic code of Milburn's general ordinances is intended to correct inaccuracies between the code and regulations displayed on the street. The purpose is also to establish several recommendations of the Milburn Police Traffic Bureau and Parking Ad Hoc Committee. These changes include reducing the parking time limits in Lot 12 from 1 hour to 30 minutes and codifying the mid-block crosswalk on Highland Avenue. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, there are some additional changes to this ordinance, including the parking lots, making sure that we've added 5 metered spaces in lot 19, as well as what was described as the changing from 1 hour to 30 minutes in lot 12, and also making sure that we put in the general code that idling is prohibited, so that we can potentially enforce idling in that lot. As you know, that's used a lot by Uber Eats or Grubhub drivers. We also added 2 stop sign locations, Cedar and Linden, which are intersections that should have stop signs, and were indicated by the Milburn Traffic Bureau that they would like to see that codified in the traffic. This is again an ordinance that we do each year. There's usually some cleanup. There's usually some things that happen throughout the year that we're codifying, and this is another version of that we do each year. So.
Thank you. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeewoman Pruish, you're scheduled to sponsor 2695-24.
I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2695-24, an ordinance authorizing the Township of Milburn to execute a cell tower and compound lease for that certain property located on block 5401, lot 1 in the Township of Milburn. Finally. Anything else?
No.
No.
No, this is the land lease for Diamond, who will be erecting I believe it's a 150 total feet monopole cell tower. This also includes a 2,500 square foot area on the ground, as well as their access to that property. Yeah, as you said, finally.
Because this has definitely been for my entire second term. We have been talking about this, so this will get done. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, of the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sekamendi?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeeman Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2696-24.
I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2696-24, an ordinance of the Township of Milburn, County of Essex, authorizing the Township of Milburn to execute a lease agreement with Paper Mill Playhouse for 20 Brookside Drive, Milburn, New Jersey, 07041. This is the lease that's conforming to the build out of the paper mill. To extend it, it actually, somebody mentioned earlier, it begins upon completion of the project, and those 2 years will be added onto the back of the lease. So there is no missing of revenue, just so that's not confused. Any questions?
If the project is not completed, it's completed the following year, it'll extend.
Correct,
Back then.
conforms.
So if it takes an extra like 2 years, they'll tack that on at the end.
Correct.
You have to-
Sure, okay. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, of the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, December 17th, 2020.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sekamendi?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Deputy Mayor, ordinance 2691-24, please.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2691-24, ordinance of the Township of Milburn, County of Essex, authorizing the Township of Milburn to execute an easement agreement granting an easement and right of way on property located at 521 Milburn Avenue, Short Hills, New Jersey. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. I don't think it's on this.
I move that this,
We gotta find out,
All right, we got it.
just in case.
Hi, Ms. Best, we have the public hearing now on ordinance 2691-24. Is that what you're calling about? You're muted.
You're muted.
Never mind. I was waiting for the next 3 minutes, Annette. I'm so sorry.
Okay, sure, no, we'll put you back on hold.
Thank
No
you so
problem.
much.
Just wanted to
Okay.
make sure, thank you.
in that case, I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sekamendi?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no old business, new business. We are going to talk about the proposed gas-powered leaf blower regulations. Do you
Sure.
want to discuss it? I mean, I think we've all reviewed the ordinance, but I can give you my feelings if you want to.
Yeah, so just so everyone's clear, as we heard earlier, the Environmental Commission held a number of public sessions, heard from the landscapers, and I think what they came up with is a very reasonable compromise that will, I'm sorry, people, can you guys hear me? I've had a lot of complaints that my mic doesn't work well, so maybe we get that checked out. But for now, I'll lean over and speak directly into it. So I think that this represents a very good compromise that will help reduce the amount of pollution and noise pollution that we have throughout the year, but still allow the landscapers to use the heavy equipment when they need it most, which is in the spring and the fall. And actually, I remember a number of the landscapers came and they actually said, look, we'd prefer you don't have any sort of ban, but if you did have a ban, make it seasonal so that it was, you know, not in the fall and the spring. So I think this is a good compromise. And then I think over time, as technology improves and electric blowers get more and more powerful and have longer run times, then, you know, we can revisit it. But I think for now, it's a very good compromise because quite honestly, there's no reason to be using a very loud and heavily polluting gas blower to blow around a few blades of grass in the middle of the summer. It's not necessary. So I'm hoping now that there's been discussion that we will be able to move this forward as a township committee. I understand there's still that educational piece the EC is going to do, but I see no reason why we can't start having this move forward.
I'm just a little concerned about the enforcement of this. I'm just not clear how that's gonna happen. You know, I just don't imagine, you know, are we expecting that if your neighbor is using a gas powered leaf blower at the wrong time of the year, that you're gonna report them to the non-emergency number? I mean, I just don't know, you know, it's unlikely that a policeman is gonna be driving by when that happens, and, you know, I just don't know how that's supposed to work.
Are we allowed to respond?
Not right now.
So it's my understanding that there's going to be a way you could report, you know, a violation and then there'll be a warning. And I think even that there's going to be sort of an educational component to it. And furthermore, you know, we don't have to take the ordinance directly as given to us. That's something that we should work in. And there's a number of other towns that have done this before. We should also look at those ordinances and come up with a reasonable enforcement mechanism. Because I think especially the first year or two is going to be about really making sure people understand it. And I think with regards to the enforcement, it's mostly going to be the commercial lawn services that would potentially be, you know, using the gas powered equipment as opposed to people calling and reporting their neighbors.
Well, but they're reporting their neighbor's landscape or whatever. I mean, that's, you know, that's what I'm concerned about. I don't think we want to turn, that's not a good way for this to happen, is to have, you know, neighbor versus neighbor. So I just think we need to kind of think through I think it's a good idea. I just want to make sure that we have if we're gonna have an ordinance like this, that we're able to enforce it in a way that's fair to everyone.
So Jared, maybe would you be able to help us out with some enforcement language based on what other communities are doing?
Yeah, I also have a suggestion two suggestions which you can consider is, one is if the resident is using their own leaf blower, making that an exception, so because, you know, obviously commercial landscapers have more money, you know, sometimes there's exceptions for individual residents who are using their own leaf blowers. That's the governing body, obviously. And I see that number one as golf courses. Golf courses are also subject to the seasonal restrictions. They can't because they're open mainly in the summer.
I know that there was discussion of that. I'm hoping during the public comment period, one of the members of the EC that is here will be able to answer that more completely, but that was something that was discussed and contemplated.
Okay.
So I'll defer to them.
Yeah, even on that, if it is on a golf course and you're so many meters or yards off some neighbor's property, maybe there is some type of dispensation for that. It's because you're in the middle of nowhere basically, versus inside the community.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up is they get an extended hour for their time restrictions. So they were differentiated in the ordinance. They could be given a greater time to landscape, and I understand why. I'm just wondering if the seasonal restriction applied to them, and also if an individual resident has a gas leaf blower, are they required to swap theirs out if they're not using a commercial landscaper?
I don't think Maplewood does. I think Maplewood, their residents can, but I'm not 100, they can use gas. But
I
I'm not
thought Maplewood
100%.
was a total ban, but
Even
we'd
with
have to check on
residents?
that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I've spoken to some members from the Environmental Commission, thank you. I'm not opposed to it, but what I said was, I don't want our residents to find out about this through their landscapers. So, I think that just, as hard as you worked with open space, it has to be the same, and it has to be the same. And also, the schools, like, did anybody talk to the schools? Because this affects them too. There's 7 schools and they maintain their properties through the summer, so that was my other ask.
Yeah, and is there gonna be a ban on decibel levels? I know there is a ban on it, and that's why I was asking between electric and gas powered. Just, I guess, you guys can enlighten us during the open public session. But how loud are those, and will there be a ban on the noise for peaceful enjoyment? Because quite frankly, my electric leaf blower is just as loud, I think, as a gas blower.
Yeah.
So maybe what would make sense is for us to formally invite a representative or delegation from the EC to come that can speak as an authority and directly answer these questions that we have. And then from there, we can determine what the next steps are. Would that make the most sense? Maybe we
Sure.
put it on,
Sounds like a-
Yeah.
next meeting's agenda.
And it might not be nice to have is some type of cooperation with a Home Depot or Lowe's. If you wanted to buy one, for them to help with a reduction in price of some sort, some type of kiss for the residents.
I think there's some state level programs that Mr. Brazil pointed out that are being contemplated. So again, I think these are questions we should ask of the experts.
Mr. McDonald, would you like to?
The only thing I just, as Mr. Stoller had, Commitment Stoller had asked about decibel levels, I think that becomes a very difficult thing to enforce. And particularly given that the difference probably might not be all that much, depending, I think where I read it was like 65 to 70 on an electric and 80 or upwards on a gas powered. I think when we talk about enforcement, there's always going to be a difficulty in enforcing new regulations. But certainly that would add another level of complexity to it. And if you're talking about whether you're using a gas powered or you're using electric, that's very easy to enforce, very simple to define. So I would just comment on that. And I know it might come up, Mr. Brazil and I had a nice conversation today, and just so that the committee is aware, because I think it also should be a concern of ours from an operational standpoint. And what we do is, and particularly in the fall and in springtime cleanup, but during the summer months, we already use electric blowers for our lawn care crews. I had asked the question earlier of Mr. Doty on whether when we do tree jobs and have large stump grindings or other activities, whether, and that's going to take place over the summer, whether electric leaf blower would suffice. And I think his words to me were, we will adapt. So I don't know if that was a direct answer to it, but I think that we'd be able to deal with that. But I will say that if anything, particularly eats into the fall and what we do from a leaf collection standpoint, would be very problematic for us. So from the standpoint of the compromise that was achieved here, I think makes some sense. But those are my comments.
The only thing that stands out to me is if I drop 1,000-pound weight or 800-pound weight on my toe, I'm still going to break my toe, right? So understanding, the peaceful enjoyment and, if you're going to restrict the times, let's do it in such a way that we do get peaceful enjoyment from it. Just because somebody's out there with an electric blower blowing all day long, still doesn't give me peaceful enjoyment. So I want to make sure that we address
Agree.
the issue.
Agree.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this earlier. There is a difference between it's not just the decibel level, but the pitch of the sound. And depending on the pitch, it also affects how far it travels and can be perceived, is my understanding. I don't
That's
get
good.
someone that can explain the physics of it better, but it's my understanding that in general, electric blowers, even if they're not, from a decibel level, all that quieter, when you're sitting inside your house and your neighbor's using it, you're not gonna hear it as easily as you are those giant, gas blowers. But again, questions we should ask when the EC comes to present.
Great.
And I just want to say, I know that we've been talking about this for a really long time and the EC's worked really hard this year. And I think it's great that we came to a compromise that it seems like everybody's on board with. So congratulations to the EC.
Thank you.
We just gotta get it across the finish line.
Well, I think
We're on the way.
I think we're on the way. Yeah,
Yes.
we're a lot further along now than we were.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Okay, public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. I will now open public comment, but I would like Ms. Best to go first since she's been waiting so long. Hello.
Hi, thank you, Annette. Oh, wait, let me turn my phone off. Sorry. Oh, wait, hold on. I just gotta turn this down because I have my phone on and I apologize. Okay. I just wanted to, oh gosh, sorry about the echo, but I gotta just go quick. Does the township have a tracking place and system to monitor predatory land practices such as unidentified LLCs accumulating land in concurrent block spaces in the same blocks, a reference number of properties close in proximity to 165 Old Short Hills? There's been probably 6 or 7 LLCs very close to the 165 Old Short Hills road. And I wanted to ask about that. If a homeowner next to a property in our township has won a cease and desist lawsuit against a homeowner who is operating a property in a non-residential manner, such as a house of worship, a gymnastics studio, or parlor in a residential area, does the township have a legal responsibility to enforce the court order as part of the township code enforcement? And I would like to request if our town code officer can be a witness at the 165 hearing tomorrow night in regards to that. And if a property at 1 Jefferson was not allowed to be operating house of worship, how is it that they're tax exempt and have a tax exempt status? I wanted to understand that, and maybe Mr. McDonald could educate me on that. It's just a question. And then I wanted to just quickly talk about the KPI comment in terms of the Explore Milburn. I listened very closely to the KPIs. So KPIs are about benchmarking numbers. It's not about like throwing numbers out. Oh, we did 85 people showed up or 85 businesses happened. You need to comp things. So you need to do a TY/LY comparison and a percent increase, et cetera, or decrease. You need to look at things like gross margin increase, EBITDA increases, and also just top line sales increases. And also just marketing, in terms of conversion rates, because, the amount of people landing on an Instagram account is not the same thing as converting. So I think that that's really important. And there's a lot of fluff on those KPIs. So I think that you might want to get a retail expert on that board. And I also want to talk about just quickly the gas powered blowers before I run out. I'm an environmentalist, but I'm also a reasonable environmentalist. And I wanted to comment, my neighbor is he's a wonderful person and he loves to blow his stuff at like 7 o'clock at night. And he has a electric blower. And the electric blower is really, it has a high frequency, and I think Frank was talking to the difference between.
Sorry, Ms. Best, your time is up. I'm
I'll talk
sorry.
about it later. Thank you so much, Annette. Have a good night.
Okay, now we can go to the room.
Good evening again, committee members. Matt Greller, Milburn Township resident. Appreciate the conversation and the debate and discussion on leaf blowers. Just a couple of quick points to answer some of the things that you raised. There have been a number of studies. I believe there's over 100 towns that have implemented some type of restriction. A number of studies have been done on acoustical quality differences between gas equipment and electrical equipment. Some of them make the same level of sound, but and I'm not an engineer, I've been reading the reports, but the frequency is different, and the significant greater difference in the acoustical quality of the gas-powered leaf blowers makes it, as Mr. Sacamando was saying, makes the sound travel further. So if someone is down the street, you're going to hear it up the street, but it's also audible over that greater distance, and it travels, the frequency waves travel through windows, through walls, and through doors. So if you're in your own house, you will hear it. If you're right next door to someone using the electric equipment, you may hear it, but it's not as piercing. It's not as annoying, and it's not as incessant compared just on the scientific level. People may differ if they don't like it, but that's why we have a seasonal restriction and hourly restrictions as well, and that's a compromise. The golf courses have additional hours because they're wanting to make sure the course is clean for folks to play early in the morning. Enforcement, we don't want neighbor versus neighbor. We want people to get along. That's on the township and the environmental commission to push the education and the implementation to make sure people are aware of this before it takes effect. There is a 3-month grace period. That's a suitable ramp up to educate people and get the word out. And there also is right now ongoing debate in Trenton to try to provide tax credits or rebates for landscapers or residents to make the conversion, just like they have for electric vehicles from gas-powered cars. So again, trying to put it on a decibel level, that's not how that should be done. It's based on the frequency, because the decibel level can be similar. And we're trying to make this a quality of life issue for everybody. So landscapers can still do the same job they're doing. The lawn can still look as the resident wants it, but it may take a little bit longer if we're using less powerful equipment, but over time, because the cost is less, we think that this will benefit the landscaping companies as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Feld, live in the poet section. I just want to go back to earlier today, you approved closed executive session minutes. I would just recommend, because your closed executive session minutes are not recorded, that you adopt sooner the minutes of those closed executive sessions. Because I think tonight you approved closed executive session from last November. That you should bifurcate, that you approve closed executive session minutes within a more of a reasonable period of time. Whether you release it, that's a separate decision, that you don't combine those decisions going forward, because I think people need to see those records. As to the SID, I just recommend that you read the briefs that were filed, the trial briefs and the exhibits, and that you go look at what budget was presented at October's meeting of the SID, because the numbers that I heard tonight differ from what was presented to you. That had it's about a $5,000 difference, and things were changed. I want to bring up the first time I appeared in front of the Township Committee was in October 2019. Because of Rosh Hashanah, I could attend that meeting. And I asked the Township Committee to investigate and ask the county to monitor and collect all long-term tax exemption revenues that were due to it. It's taken me 5 years for the county to admit that they failed to do that. You need to look at the October 29th public notice that appeared in the Star Ledger, where the county auditor finally admitted and told the county, you need to monitor and collect all long-term tax exemption revenues. I know when I speak, you discount everything I say. I'm telling you right now, you should start listening and give more credibility to what I'm saying. Because on October 29th, there was a page-and-a-half ad about tax exempt revenues bonds being issued for affordable housing projects. On the 29th, the appellate division issued an opinion that I had to file the motion for reconsideration, where it says that all pilots since April 17th, 1992 have to be issued by the long-term tax exemption law. That's the way we can fight RPM. So RPM has been saying that they want a long-term tax exemption under the HMFA statute, and they don't have to be a urban renewal entity. This is getting to the weeds. I offer my assistance. I do not understand why you don't take my offer up to help in fighting RPM and Fair Share Housing Center, because the Fair Share Housing Center has a subsidiary. They got revenue bonds, but not pursuant to the long-term tax exemption law. And one of the problems we have in the state, when we look at our state controller, where did he come from? He was the former executive director of the Fair Share Housing Center. Why isn't he investigating that?
Thanks. Bill Brazell again, South Mountain Environmental Commission, et cetera. I just have two comments, so this should be quick. One is the question of enforcement that was raised. So I've spoken with a number of towns where they have these kinds of restrictions. The code enforcement officer is generally how other towns handle it. So just FYI, I had a very nice conversation with the code enforcement officer of Montclair, delightful man, said call anytime. It's not a problem in our town and we're happy to talk about it. So that's one thing to think about when you guys take this up. The second thing, Mr. Cantor, you had raised the question of could residents have an exception and be allowed to use gas leaf blowers where professional landscapers would not be. This was tried in Maplewood, and the landscapers brought a lawsuit saying this is discriminatory against the landscapers. The only way they could end the suit was to say, okay, no one has an exception. Both private residents and professional landscapers have to abide by the same rules. So I just wanted to let you know that that has been experienced in our neighboring town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one online?
Yeah, Perry Urso had asked me, Jean Pasternak, sorry. Perry Urso sent her statement and asked if I would read it into the record. She's busy. She said, due to a prior obligation, I'm unable to attend the meeting. She asked the following statement be read. Let's see, I'm gonna skip the beginning there. I would respectfully ask that this body request Attorney Cantor to opine on the conflict of interest, appearance of impropriety matter, and not rely on the former Township Attorney Falcon's memorandum dated August 10th, 2020, which failed to state any case law post 1958. Have all members of this body reviewed all existing SID professional contracts? Has this body been furnished with the annual review of the performance for the executive director from the Board of Trustees of the SID? If you were to answer yes, when was it submitted? I would respectfully suggest that Committeewoman Prupus recuse herself from the 2025 SID budget presentation. When Milburn Township's now sitting mayor accepted her nomination from the TC committee, there was pushback from the public because she was also the current sitting MSH Democratic Party chair. The public questioned her conflicts and she graciously resigned from her longstanding position as chair. Since then, I have learned that the current SID board chair has accepted the position, has since replaced our mayor as a new Democratic Committee Chair in June 24. Should the current SID chair resign from her position, as this poses the same kind of conflict? And why would the Democratic Committee ask during interviews with candidates running on the Democratic ticket if they support the SID? Why is this question relevant, and would this bring you back to November 21, 2018 TC meeting when then DMDA president stated that this entity is used as a political platform? Is the ex officio member on the Board of Trustees required to live and vote within Milburn? To Perry Urso. This was my couple questions from the SID presentation. I think it's great that you guys actually have a discussion like you had, so I hope you'll continue to allow that and not shut it down. I think it was really helpful. What restrictions does Milburn have in addition to the benefits from Main Street, New Jersey? Tara raised this question last year, and I don't think it was ever explained or answered fully. Mr. Grillo has a consulting business. How does he work full-time for Milburn and also tend to his other clients? It looks like Amanda does a lot of the work that Mr. Grillo used to do as this organizations move forward. Maybe it, and as well as the outsourced vendors. This was a startup, is now launched and operational. Maybe it makes more sense to make this a more operational job for the ED. That's it.
Thank you.
Richie Cyber, resident. This is a quick one. The town that picks up, the town guys that pick up the leaves, they do a beautiful job. They organize, but there should be some kind of rule about people doing overnight parking and blocking the streets to do the leaves. I think that the DPW guys should be able to issue tickets to people, or at least knock on the door, because I saw this week, I mean, it happens. People park on the street, the leave guys come to clean it up, and it's like a pain in their neck. They have to come back later to the neighborhood to fix. So is there overnight parking in this town? No. Okay, 29 Southern Slope Drive.
Good evening, Phil Kirsch, Melbourne resident. About the gas powered leaf blowers, I mean, it's great what the Environmental Commission has done. I think we're making real progress. One perspective I wanted to give was my landscaper, really nice guy. And I mentioned to him a while ago, around the time of the meeting, what he thought about the gas powered leaf blowers coming in. And he said he was open to changes, and he said he'd come to the meeting where the landscapers were invited. And I said, how did it go? And he said, everybody, they were really nice, reasonable, and it was a good discussion. So I think a lot of landscapers are going to be amenable to something like you talked about, that's a compromise situation. And I also think that if the homeowners are amenable, I mean, I said to my landscaper, I said, well, you know, if they do this and you have to charge me a little more, that's okay with me. And if my lawn doesn't look as perfect as it did, that's okay with me also. And I really think that the homeowners have to do their part. I mean, the EC has done their part. The landscapers, I think, are more open to this than some people think. And if the homeowners do their part, I think it's going to work out really well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Debbie Frank, Milburn resident. Also on the leaf blowers, the other thing you have to remember is that a lot of the landscapers that are working in Milburn also work in those other towns that have the restrictions on leaf blowers. They're already getting accustomed to this. They probably already have ways that they're dealing with this. So for them, for the first town to do it, it's a harder ask than it would be for us to do it. Also, the levels, the frequency levels, all that are very important. But the one thing that I didn't hear asked questions from here that is as important are the polluting aspects and the health aspects that are not about, just the noise level. That's at least as important a thing as the noise. And one quick question, and I may have this completely wrong, maybe I have my zone wrong, but Mr. Cyber was talking about the leaves. My leaves were supposed to be picked up last week. They have not been picked up. Mine, my across the street neighbors, my up the street, and so I don't know what's going on with that. That's it.
Thank you.
Presidential sign, right? Just like FEMA.
Okay, we'll now close public comment. Was everybody? Okay, comments from the Township Committee? Committeeman Stoller?
Sure. And we know it's not because of the rain, Ms. Frank. So, a couple issues, or a couple of comments. Richie Seibert, I agree, they should just tow that car if it's sitting on a pile of leaves. You know, lucky not to catch the leaves on fire, especially with the fire dangers we've been issued. Second, the leaf blower ban. I came to the meeting with the landscapers. One thing I want to make sure is we don't create something worse than a leaf blower. And one of the guys was saying that he has to have a generator buzzing 24/7 to charge the battery. So I want to make sure that we understand that any generators used by these guys is going to put out a greater level of noxious gases as well. So I want to make sure, if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. I don't want to swap one problem for a bigger problem. And that's for Mr. Greller, and I'm sure there's studies. And I do understand, I think I understand about the decibel versus the pitch. Because when they're doing the gas, it permeates right through the entire house. Mr. Feld, I read everything you send. I don't discount any of it. I do believe you are an asset and it helps to see it. So continue to do as you do. And then that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any
I
comment?
don't have any comment.
Deputy Mayor?
Sure, so real quick, I just want to put it out there that generators are 4-cycle engines. 4-cycle engines apparently are far less polluting than 2-cycle engines. 2-cycle engines don't have a complete combustion cycle, and they're also burning oil, which releases a lot more pollutants. So you could run a generator for hours and hours and hours, and it wouldn't come close to the amount of pollutants that a single 2-cycle gas blower will emit in a matter of minutes. That's just science. So there's that. I think Ms. Frank made a fantastic point. A lot of landscaping companies around here are already dealing with these restrictions. So I think we're in a good position in that, yes, we're not first, we're not the pioneers. Maybe we should be more pioneering, but we're not the first. So I think that this will be an easy transition for the landscapers. And I also don't think we should be the last. So I feel like this is an appropriate time to do this. With regards to the leaves, I have noticed the piles of leaves all over town. Mr. McDonald, is there are we missing something? Is there something going on? Or are we just wrong about the schedule?
That's a lot of leaves. I don't know. It's a fairly vague question, given I don't know exactly, what zones haven't been picked up, or I think the larger point is that a lot of leaves have fallen. Due to the drought conditions, due to the wind and things like that, and the leaves drying out earlier, a lot of leaves have fallen. Also, we'd have to be certain that people are following the leaf collection schedule too. People put their leaves in the street rather than storing them on the curb and then pushing them in the street on the days that they're supposed to be in the street. I would have to go back to DPW and say, one, are we enforcing the rules? Are we, red tagging neighbors that aren't doing, or, residents that aren't doing it correctly? I do also know that they are behind as well in their collection based on the volume of leaves. Usually you get a much heavier November and December, and I think you're seeing a very heavy November, and we'll see a light December. So that is part of it.
Is there any additional resources they need or equipment they need to rent that would help?
Time. Yeah,
Just time.
unfortunately,
Okay.
yeah.
Start early in the morning.
Because I'm cognizant of the fact that we've had these fires in neighboring towns. And
Yeah,
we probably don't want those leaves to linger.
understood, yeah.
Okay.
I have no comments.
Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, I apologize, I didn't hear the beginning of Miss Beth's conversation. But however, I did hear the question about 1 Jefferson, and just to be clear, that 1 Jefferson is a parsonage, so therefore it is also tax exempt. There are other parsonages in the township as well, besides 1 Jefferson. And I think that's it.
Mr. Cantor?
I have nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Awesome. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Motion.